What if everything you thought you knew about angels was wrong? What if the beings we picture with golden halos and peaceful smiles were once warriors who started the greatest rebellion in cosmic history? Picture this. It's 1773. A Scottish explorer named James Bruce stands in a dim Ethiopian monastery. His hands shake as an ancient monk places weathered pages into his palms. The monk's voice barely rises above a whisper. This has been hidden from the world for over 1,000 years. Bruce has no idea he's holding dynamite, not the explosive kind, but something far more dangerous to those in power. He's holding the Book of Enoch, a text so controversial that church leaders once ordered every copy burned, a book so feared that simply owning it could cost you everything. But why? What secrets could be so dangerous that they had to be erased from history? The answer lies in its pages. Stories of angels who abandoned heaven for forbidden love. Tales of giants who devoured everything in their path. Visions of cosmic wars that make earthly battles look like children's games. And prophecies so specific, so terrifying, that religious authorities decided humanity wasn't ready to hear them. This wasn't just any banned book. This was a different version of history itself. While the Bible gives us hints about fallen angels in just a few verses, Enoch gives us the full, uncensored story. Names, dates, methods, consequences, everything they didn't want you to know. Imagine discovering that Superman was real, but instead of saving the world, he and 199 other superheroes decided to take over. That's essentially what Enoch claims happened in humanity's earliest days. Angels with the power to move mountains looked down at human women and said, "We want that." What followed changed everything. For over 16 centuries, this book existed only as rumors and whispers. Scholars knew it had once influenced early Christianity. They found quotes from it in other ancient texts. But the book itself? Gone. Vanished. Erased so thoroughly that many believed it was lost forever. Yet here's what's fascinating. Even though church invention, we're not just talking about some obscure religious text gathering dust in a library. We're talking about a book that shaped how our ancestors understood good and evil, justice and mercy, the visible world and the invisible forces that move behind it. Before we go deeper into this forbidden knowledge, if content like this helps you explore ideas that challenge conventional thinking, consider hitting that like button. It genuinely helps us continue bringing you stories they don't want told. And let us know in the comments. Have you ever heard of the Book of Enoch before today? What's your biggest question about angels and the supernatural? The monk in that Ethiopian monastery told James Bruce something that still gives us chills. Some knowledge, he said, waits for the right time to return to the world. After centuries of silence, that time has come. The book they tried to erase has risen from the shadows, and nothing about angels, giants, or the early history of humanity will ever look the same. So buckle in. We're about to explore a world where angels wage war, where giants walk the earth, and where one man's journey to heaven reveals secrets that shake the very foundations of reality. This is the story they didn't want you to hear. This is the Book of Enoch. Chapter 2. The Man Who Walked Between Worlds. Every great story has an unlikely hero. Indiana Jones was just a professor. Luke Skywalker was a farm boy. And Enoch? He was a record keeper, a man with ink-stained fingers who spent his days writing down measurements, tracking seasons, and teaching children their numbers. But sometimes the most ordinary people are chosen for the most extraordinary purposes. Picture ancient Mesopotamia, around 3,000 years before Christ. The world is young, wild, and dangerous. Tribes wander vast plains. Wild animals rule the forests. And somewhere in this primitive landscape lives a man who will become the bridge between heaven and earth. The Bible introduces Enoch with just one mysterious sentence. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. 24 words that have sparked thousands of years of questions. What does it mean to walk with God? I need a messenger, not a king, not a warrior, not a priest. I need Enoch, the scribe. What was special about this quiet record keeper? Jewish traditions tell us Enoch was the first person to write books, while others shared stories around campfires. Enoch put wisdom on permanent record. He was humanity's first librarian, preserving knowledge for future generations. But he was more than just a note-taker. Ancient texts describe Enoch as someone who understood patterns. He could look at seemingly random events and see the larger design. He could observe natural cycles and predict what would come next. In a chaotic world, he found order. This ability to see patterns made him the perfect choice for what was coming. God needed someone who could witness the cosmic court of justice and then return to explain it to humanity. Someone who could translate heavenly concepts into earthly language. Someone who could serve as heaven's war correspondent. And here's where the story gets really interesting. Most prophets received their visions while awake. Moses at the burning bush, Ezekiel by the river. But Enoch? His first contact with the divine realm came through dreams. He was literally asleep when angels first appeared to him. Picture this moment. Enoch lies sleeping in his tent. Suddenly, he's not alone. Two beings appear, taller than any human he's ever seen. Their faces shine like the sun. Their eyes burn like torches. Fire seems to dance from their lips. Their clothing looks like feathers made of light, and their wings gleam brighter than gold. Any normal person would wake up screaming. But Enoch, the text tells us, he listened. These weren't the fallen watchers who had corrupted the earth. These were loyal angels, still connected to heaven's throne. They spoke with voices like rushing water. Fear not, Enoch, righteous man and scribe of righteousness. Then came the assignment that would change everything. Come with us and tell the watchers of heaven who have abandoned the high heaven that they shall never find peace. Let that sink in. God was asking a human being to deliver a termination notice to rebellious angels, beings with the power to level mountains, who had taught humanity the arts of war and man. Keepers, the ones who pay attention to details that others miss, are exactly who heaven needs for the most important missions. Coming up next, we'll discover what happened when this humble scribe came face to face with the fallen angels themselves. Spoiler alert. It wasn't a friendly conversation. These were beings who had abandoned heaven for forbidden desires, and they were about to learn that some choices can never be undone. Chapter 3. When Angels Chose Desire Over Duty. This is where our story takes a dark turn. We're about to explore one of the most controversial chapters in all of ancient literature. The account of how 200 angels looked down from heaven, saw something they wanted and decided to take it, no matter the cost. Before we dive in, let me ask you something. Have you ever wanted something so badly that you were willing to break every rule to get it? Have you ever been in a position of trust and power, only to abuse it for personal gain? If so, you'll understand what happened next. If not, you might find it hard to believe that beings of light could fall so far. The setting is Mount Hermon, a towering peak that rises over 9,000 feet above sea level on the border between modern-day Israel, Lebanon, and Syria. But this isn't just any mountain. According to Enoch, this is where heaven and earth collide. where the supernatural breaks through into our natural world. Picture this scene. 200 of heaven's elite forces stand in formation on the mountain peak. These aren't your typical Sunday school angels with harps and halos. These are the Watchers, cosmic intelligence agents tasked with observing and protecting early humanity. They're massive, powerful, and beautiful beyond human imagination. Their leader steps forward. His name is Samjaza, which means rebellious against God. Already you can see where this is heading. He looks out over his troops and makes a speech that will echo through eternity. I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. Even in rebellion, Samjaza understood the weight of what they were about to do. He knew there would be consequences, but desire had already overruled wisdom. Mountain peak. 200 beings of light chose darkness. 200 guardians became predators, and the earth would never be the same. But here's where the story gets even more disturbing. These angels didn't just abandon their posts for love. They became teachers of forbidden knowledge. Each angel had access to different cosmic secrets, and they began sharing them with humanity, like a cosmic WikiLeaks dump. Azazel taught men how to make weapons: swords, knives, shields, and armor. Before this, human conflicts were settled with fists or stones. Now they had instruments of war designed by heavenly intelligence. The result? Bloodshed on an unprecedented scale. Samjaza taught spellbinding and root-cutting, the arts of magic and sorcery. Armoros taught how to break spells. Barakajal taught astrology. Kokabel taught the signs of the stars. Ezekiel taught knowledge of the clouds. Each lesson moved humanity further from innocence and closer to corruption. And the women? They learned to adorn themselves with jewelry, cosmetics, and precious stones, to paint their eyes and change their appearance. This might sound harmless, but Enoch presents it as the beginning of vanity, deception, and the worship of outward beauty over inner character. But the worst was yet to come. From these unholy unions between angels and humans came children, but not normal children. The Nephilim, giants whose hunger and violence knew no bounds, beings with the strength of angels and the fallen nature of corrupted humanity. The text is brutally clear about what happened next. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells. Even if we scale down the numbers, we're talking about beings of enormous size and appetite. These giants consumed everything: plants, animals, and when those ran out, humans themselves. They turned the earth into their personal feeding ground. Imagine a world where apex predators had human intelligence and angelic strength. Nowhere was safe. What started as forbidden love had become a horror movie. The Watchers had broken the natural order, and chaos was the result. Violence, magic, vanity, bloodshed, cannibalism become its greatest threat. And somewhere in heaven, other angels were taking notice. The cosmic court of justice was about to convene. Coming up, we'll meet the giants themselves, the Nephilim, whose very existence was proof that some boundaries should never be crossed. Trust me, these aren't the friendly giants from fairy tales. These are monsters that make your worst nightmares look like bedtime stories. Chapter 4. The Giants That Shook the Earth. Imagine looking up and seeing a shadow fall across the sun. You crane your neck skyward, expecting to see a cloud, but instead, you see a face, a human face, but one that belongs to a being 30 feet tall, with eyes that burn with intelligence and hunger that can never be satisfied. Welcome to the world of the Nephilim. These weren't the gentle giants of children's stories. The Book of Enoch describes beings whose very existence was an abomination, half angel, half human hybrids that should never have been born. Their name literally means the fallen ones, or those who cause others to fall. And fall they did, dragging all of creation down with them. The numbers Enoch gives us are staggering, 3,000 ells tall. That's roughly 4,500 feet if taken literally. Now, ancient texts often use symbolic numbers, but even if we scale this down dramatically, we're still talking about beings of impossible size and strength. Giants who could step over trees, wade through rivers, and treat mountains like hills. But size wasn't their only terrifying feature. These giants inherited something from their angelic fathers: supernatural intelligence and otherworldly appetites. They weren't just big humans. They were something entirely new and entirely wrong. Picture this. You're a farmer in the ancient world, tending your crops and raising your family. Life is hard but peaceful. Then one day, the ground begins to shake. Trees crash in the distance. A shadow falls across your field, and you look up to see a giant striding across the landscape like you might step over an anthill. The giant is hungry, and your entire harvest isn't even a snack. Enoch tells giants who see you as a potential meal. How do you sleep at night? How do you let your children play outside? How do you maintain hope when monsters with godlike strength roam the earth? The giants didn't just threaten physical survival. They represented something deeper: the complete breakdown of natural order. Every culture has rules about what's appropriate to eat, how to treat other living beings, how to exist in harmony with nature. The Nephilim broke every rule simultaneously. And here's what's truly disturbing. They were intelligent about their destruction. These weren't mindless monsters. They had the cognitive abilities of their angelic fathers, combined with the corrupted desires of fallen humanity. They could plan, strategize, and coordinate their devastation. Archaeological mysteries around the world might suddenly make more sense through this lens. Massive stone structures that seem impossible for ancient humans to build. Legends of giants in cultures from Greece to Native America to Scandinavia. Ancient weapons and armor sized for beings much larger than normal humans. The Bible itself references the Nephilim in multiple places. Numbers 13 describes how Israelite spies saw giants in the Promised Land and felt like grasshoppers in comparison. 1 Samuel tells us about Goliath of Gath, over 9 feet tall, wearing armor that weighed 125 pounds. Even King Og of Bashan had a bed made of iron that was over 13 feet long. But here's what makes the Enoch account so powerful. It doesn't just tell us that giants existed. It explains why they existed and why they were so destructive. They were living proof of broken boundaries, of what happens when the natural order is violated for selfish desires. If you're finding these connections between ancient texts and historical mysteries fascinating, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're just getting started with revelations that will challenge everything you thought you knew about early human history. The giants represented more than just physical threat. They were walking reminders of cosmic rebellion. Every time someone saw a Nephilim, they were witnessing the consequences of the Watcher's choice to abandon their posts. These monsters were living evidence that some knowledge. Up next, we'll explore how these giants didn't just destroy the environment, they corrupted human culture itself. The forbidden knowledge their Watcher fathers shared would change civilization forever, creating technologies and practices that humanity wasn't ready to handle. The angels had given fire to infants, and the world was about to burn. Chapter 5. secrets that corrupted humanity. Before the Watchers descended, human life was simple, brutal sometimes, short often, but simple. People planted seeds and waited for rain. They hunted with wooden spears and stone knives. They built shelters from mud and straw. They told stories around fires and passed wisdom from parent to child. Then came the day when beings of cosmic intelligence decided to play teacher, and everything changed. Picture this. You're living in 3000 BC, barely surviving day to day, when suddenly a being of light approaches your village. This angel doesn't come with warnings or wisdom. Instead, he says, "Let me show you how to make weapons that can kill from a distance. Let me teach you how to turn rocks into flowing metal. Let me give you power over the very elements themselves." It sounds like a gift from heaven. It was actually a curse from hell. The Book of Enoch names names. Azazel taught metallurgy, how to extract metals from ore, how to forge them into tools and weapons. This might sound beneficial, but consider the context. Humanity went from Stone Age technology to advanced metalworking in a single generation. No gradual learning curve, no time to develop the wisdom to use such knowledge responsibly. Imagine giving nuclear weapons to cave dwellers. That's essentially what happened. Semjaza taught spellbinding and the cutting of roots, early forms of sorcery and pharmaceutical manipulation. Armaros taught how to resolve enchantments. Barakel taught astrology, but not the harmless horoscope variety. This was the belief that human fate was controlled by star movements, that personal responsibility could be abandoned to cosmic forces. Kokabel taught the signs of the stars, Ezekiel the knowledge of the clouds, Arakiel the signs of the earth, and Shamsiel the signs of the sun. Each lesson moved humanity further from trust it received, cosmic-level knowledge with no understanding of its proper use or moral implications. The results were immediate and catastrophic. The text tells us, "And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways." Weapons designed for hunting became instruments of war. Metallurgy, meant for tools, created more efficient ways to kill. Astrology replaced trust in divine guidance with fear of celestial forces. Magic became a substitute for prayer. Cosmetics fostered vanity and deception. Think about our modern world for a moment. We're living through a similar explosion of knowledge and technology. Artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, nuclear energy, social media manipulation. We have incredible power, but do we have the wisdom to use it responsibly? The Book of Enoch suggests this isn't the first time humanity has faced such a test. The corruption spread like a virus. Those who learned forbidden arts taught them to others. Villages that had lived peacefully for generations suddenly had access to weapons of war. Conflicts that once ended with bruises now ended with death. The cycle of violence accelerated beyond anything the world had seen. But it wasn't just physical violence that increased. The text describes spiritual corruption as well. Humans began to worship the Watchers as gods. They offered sacrifices to these fallen angels, turning away from the true Creator who had given them life. Here's where the story gets personal. Have you ever been offered knowledge or power that came with strings attached? Have you ever been tempted to take shortcuts that compromise your values? Have you ever wondered why some technologies seem to create more problems than they solve? If this exploration of ancient warnings about knowledge and power is making you think differently about our modern world, show your support by hitting that like button. And tell me in the comments, do you see parallels between the Watchers' gifts and technologies in our own time? The most tragic aspect of this corruption wasn't what it gave humanity, but what it took away. Before the Watcher's intervention, humans had to depend on each other, on nature, and on divine changed. Even animals became more aggressive, as if creation itself was responding to the violence and unnaturalness that had invaded the world. And in heaven, other angels watched with growing alarm. The cries of innocent victims reached the throne of the Most High. Justice was stirring. Judgment was coming. But first, one man would be chosen to witness the cosmic court proceedings. A simple scribe named Enoch was about to receive the assignment of a lifetime, to stand before beings of ultimate power and deliver a message that would seal the fate of the fallen Watchers. Coming up, we'll follow Enoch on his impossible mission, approaching beings who could destroy him with a thought, carrying a message they definitely didn't want to hear. Spoiler alert, it doesn't go well for the angels. Chapter 6, The Messenger's Impossible Mission. Imagine being asked to serve a subpoena to a gang of cosmic terrorists. That's essentially what happened to Enoch. The humble scribe who had spent his life recording harvests and tracking seasons was about to become heaven's official messenger to the most dangerous beings in creation. The assignment came in a dream that felt more real than waking life. Two beings appeared to Enoch, radiant beyond description, speaking with voices like rushing water. "Fear not, Enoch, righteous man and scribe of righteousness. Come with us and tell the Watchers of heaven who have abandoned the high heaven that they shall never find peace. Put yourself in Enoch's sandals for a moment. You're a record keeper, not a warrior. Your greatest act of bravery was probably correcting a calculation error in front of the village elders. Now you're being asked to confront 200 fallen angels who have the power to level mountains and have already demonstrated they're willing to break every cosmic law for their desires. What would you say? Thanks, but I think you have the wrong guy. Maybe send someone with military experience. Can I at least get some backup?" Enoch said yes, without hesitation, without negotiation, without even asking for protection. He simply accepted the mission that would take him face to face with beings who had chosen rebellion over obedience, chaos over all, had completely reversed. Beings with the power of gods were begging a human scribe to speak on their behalf. Here's what had happened. The Watchers realized they were in trouble. Big trouble. The kind of trouble that comes when you abandon your post, corrupt an entire species, father a race of monsters, and basically turn paradise into a war zone. They could feel divine attention turning toward them, and they were terrified. So they did what many powerful people do when they realize they've overplayed their hand. They tried to hire a lawyer. Except their lawyer was a simple man with ink-stained fingers, who had never negotiated anything more complex than grain prices. The petition they asked Enoch to deliver was essentially, "We're sorry. We know we messed up. Could you please ask for mercy?" But it was too little, too late, and they knew it. These beings who had taught humans the arts of war and magic were now trembling at the thought of facing divine justice. Picture this scene. Enoch, barely 5.5 feet tall, standing before beings who towered over him like living skyscrapers. Their eyes burned with residual angelic fire. Their voices could shatter stone. Their very presence made the air shimmer with supernatural energy. And they were begging him for help. It's one of the most powerful reversals in all of literature. The mighty had fallen so far that they needed the mercy of those they had corrupted. The teachers had become students of human compassion. The rebels had become supplicants. But Enoch wasn't just a messenger. He was about to become something unprecedented in human history. the first person to visit heaven while still alive, and return to tell about it. His mission wasn't just to carry a message from the Watchers to God. It was to bring God's response back to Earth. If stories like this that reveal the hidden connections between ancient texts and cosmic justice captivate you, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. We're about to witness the most important court case in history, and you won't want to miss the verdict. The journey to heaven began while Enoch slept, but it was more real than any waking experience. He found himself lifted beyond the physical world, beyond the realm of punishment, but to observe justice, to see how divine mercy and divine justice work together, to understand that even cosmic rebellion has consequences that echo through eternity. The Watchers had broken faith with heaven. They had corrupted the earth. They had fathered monsters. They had taught forbidden knowledge. They had turned creation itself into a battlefield, and now they wanted mercy. The question hanging in the cosmic air was simple. Is there forgiveness for those who have crossed every line? Can beings of light who have chosen darkness find their way back to illumination? Or are some choices so final, so destructive that they create irreversible consequences? Enoch was about to find out, and so are we. Coming next, the cosmic courtroom where justice wears a face of fire, and mercy weighs the hearts of angels. The verdict will reshape reality itself. Chapter 7. Heaven's Court of Final Justice. The courtroom wasn't made of marble or wood. It was constructed from crystallized light, surrounded by flames that burned without consuming. As Enoch approached the throne of ultimate justice, he realized he was witnessing something no human had ever seen. The place where cosmic decisions are made, where the fate of angels and nations is determined. This wasn't a human courtroom with lawyers arguing technicalities. This was the source of all justice, where truth needs no proof because deception cannot exist, where mercy and judgment meet in perfect balance, where the consequences of cosmic rebellion would finally be weighed. The throne itself defied description. Enoch tried his best, and the great glory sat thereon, and his raiment shone more brightly than the sun, and was whiter than any snow. None of the angels could enter, and could behold his face by reason of the magnificence and glory. Picture trying to look directly at the sun, but instead of just light, you're seeing pure justice, perfect love, absolute truth, and infinite power all at once. No wonder angels covered their faces. No wonder Enoch could barely form words to describe what he witnessed. The case was already prepared. The evidence was overwhelming. 4 archangels, Michael, Gabriel, swift and final. Go and say to the Watchers of heaven, who have sent you to intercede for them, you should intercede for men, not men for you. Let that sink in. The beings who were supposed to protect humanity were now begging humanity to protect them. The guardians had become the threat. The teachers had become the destroyers. The divine order had been completely inverted. But the judgment went deeper than punishment. It revealed something profound about the nature of justice itself. True justice isn't about revenge. It's about restoration. The Watchers couldn't be restored to their former positions because they had proven themselves untrustworthy. They couldn't be allowed to continue corrupting creation because justice demands protection for the innocent. So the sentence was perfect in its symmetry. You have been in heaven, but not all the secrets of heaven have been revealed to you. And you know, worthless ones, these you have made known to women in the hardness of your hearts, and through these secrets women and men work much evil on earth. The Watchers had used their access to heavenly knowledge for earthly corruption. Now they would lose that access forever. They had crossed boundaries that were meant to remain fixed. Now they would be confined by boundaries they could never break. Each Watcher received a personalized sentence. Azazel, who taught warfare and vanity, bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness. Make an opening in the desert, and cast him into it. Place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever. For a being made of light, eternal darkness was the ultimate punishment. For a spirit accustomed to freedom, permanent confinement was agony beyond description. Semjaza and his followers, bind them hand and foot for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, until the day of their judgment and of their consummation, until the judgment that is forever and ever is consummated. 70 generations, roughly 1,400 years of imprisonment before final judgment. Time to reflect on their choices. Time to witness the consequences of their rebellion play the process. Even rebellious angels received a fair hearing. Even cosmic criminals were allowed to present their case. Divine justice operates with perfect fairness, even when dealing with perfect rebellion. But fairness doesn't mean leniency when the stakes are this high. The Watchers hadn't just broken rules. They had corrupted an entire species. They hadn't just made mistakes. They had chosen chaos over order, personal desire over cosmic responsibility, temporary pleasure over eternal purpose. The judgment also revealed something crucial about free will. The Watchers weren't forced to rebel. They chose it. They planned it. They swore oaths to continue it even when they suspected the consequences. And now they were experiencing those consequences in full. Yet even in judgment, mercy appeared. The sentence wasn't immediate destruction, but confined imprisonment. Time to contemplate their choices. Time to witness what their rebellion had cost. Time to understand why boundaries exist in the first place. The cosmic court had spoken. Justice had been served, but the hard work was just beginning. How do you contain beings of supernatural power? How do you clean up the mess they've created? How do you restore order to a world that has forgotten what order looks like? That's where the loyal angels come in, and their solution is about to reshape the earth itself. Coming up, the cosmic prison that exists beyond space and time, and the loyal angels tasked with executing the most difficult sentence in history. Some rebellions are too dangerous to forgive. Some knowledge is too destructive to unleash. Some boundaries are too important to compromise. Chapter 8. The Cosmic Prison Beyond Time. Imagine trying to build a jail cell for Superman. Regular bars won't hold him. Concrete walls are meaningless. Even time itself might not be enough to contain him. Now multiply that challenge by 200 and add supernatural intelligence, angelic powers, and a proven willingness to break any rule to get what they want. Welcome to the construction project of the millennium, the cosmic prison designed to hold fallen angels. This wasn't going to be your typical correctional facility. The Watchers weren't human criminals who blazed, and the place had a cleft reaching to the abyss, full of great descending columns of fire. Picture a location where physics works differently, where fire burns without fuel, where darkness exists alongside blinding light, where the very geography is designed to contain beings of ultimate power. This wasn't just a prison. It was a pocket dimension created specifically for cosmic criminals. The construction crew wasn't human. The loyal archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel personally supervised the creation of this supernatural detention center. Each brought their unique abilities to the project. Michael, the warrior, designed the security systems that could hold beings with strength to move mountains. Raphael, the healer, created containment fields that would prevent the prisoners from using their corrupted knowledge to escape or influence the outside world. Gabriel, the messenger, established communication barriers so the imprisoned watchers couldn't coordinate escape attempts or send messages to potential allies on Earth. Uriel, the fire of God, provided the spiritual barriers that would prevent these fallen beings from accessing heavenly power or knowledge. But this prison had multiple sections, each designed for different types of offenders. Azazel, the worst of the bunch who had taught humans warfare and vanity, received solitary confinement. Make an opening in the desert and cast him into it. Place upon him rough and jagged rocks and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever. And cover his face that he may not see light. For a being made of light, eternal darkness was psychological torture as much as physical punishment. Imagine never again seeing sunrise, starlight, or the face of another living being. Just endless black silence for eternity. Semjaza and his followers got a different form of imprisonment. Bind them hand and foot, and cast them into the valleys of the earth till the day of judgment. They would be chained in groups, forced to contemplate their rebellion together, watching each other's regret and despair. The chains themselves weren't made of normal boundaries of creation, a place where rebellious beings could be contained without affecting the natural order. Some modern readers wonder, where exactly is this prison? The answer might surprise you. According to the text, it exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Physical locations like desert valleys and mountain peaks serve as entry points, but the actual containment exists in spiritual dimensions that intersect with but transcend physical reality. Think of it like a cosmic holding cell that exists in the spaces between atoms, in the pause between 1 second and the next, in the gap between thought and action. Visible to spiritual sight, but undetectable by physical instruments. If you're fascinated by these ancient descriptions of dimensional prisons and spiritual geography, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're exploring territories that modern science is just beginning to understand, but ancient visionaries mapped out thousands of years ago. The prison guards weren't human either. Loyal angels were assigned to watch the watchers, to ensure the containment held, to prevent any possibility of escape or outside communication. These weren't just guards. They were cosmic wardens with the authority and power to maintain order in the face of supernatural chaos. But the most brilliant aspect of this prison system was its educational component. The watchers weren't just being punished. They were being forced to witness the consequences of their actions. From their confinement, they could observe human history unfolding. They could see how their corruption played out across generations. They could watch the cycles of violence, deception, and spiritual rebellion they had initiated. Every war fought with weapons they taught humans to make. Every act of vanity inspired by the cosmetics they introduced. Every spell cast using knowledge they had shared inappropriately. The prisoners had front-row seats to the destruction they had caused, unable to intervene, unable to escape, unable to forget. This wasn't just justice. It was education through consequences. The Watchers were learning why boundaries exist, why knowledge has to cleanse the earth itself and give creation a fresh start. The loyal angels were about to implement the most comprehensive solution in history. Coming up, the great reset that would wash away the corruption of the Watchers and give humanity a second chance. But first, one family would need to prepare for the storm of the millennium. Chapter 9. Warriors of Light, Take Action. The cosmic court had delivered its verdict. The prison had been constructed. The fallen Watchers were contained. But their legacy of corruption still infected the earth like a virus. Giants roamed the hills. Humans used forbidden knowledge to wage increasingly brutal wars. The natural order was so damaged that creation itself was crying out for relief. It was time for the loyal angels to take direct action, and their solution would be unlike anything the world had seen before or since. The mission fell to heaven's elite forces, the 4 archangels who had witnessed the corruption firsthand and argued the case for justice. Each received specific assignments that would work together to accomplish the greatest rescue operation in history. Michael, the warrior archangel whose name means "who is like God," received the military assignment. Go, bind Semjaza and his associates who have united themselves with women so as to have defiled themselves with them in all their uncleanness. Picture the ultimate cosmic special forces operation. Michael, commander of heaven's armies, personally overseeing the arrest and imprisonment of 200 fallen angels. These weren't routine criminals. These were beings with the power to level cities who had already demonstrated they would break any law to achieve their desires. But Michael wasn't operating alone. His forces included legions of loyal angels, spiritual warriors who had remained faithful to their posts while their brothers chose rebellion. The battle wasn't just physical. It was a clash between different visions of cosmic order. Gabriel, the messenger whose name means "strength of God," received what might seem like a gentler assignment, but was actually the most crucial. Go to Noah and tell him in my name, hide yourself, and reveal to him the coming end. Recurring, bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and heal the earth which the angels have corrupted. This wasn't just about punishment, it was about cosmic medicine. The earth itself was sick from the unnatural violence and corruption the Watchers had introduced. Raphael's job was to perform surgery on reality itself, removing the infection and restoring creation to health. The healing wouldn't be quick or easy. The corruption had spread through every aspect of human civilization. The weapons technology the Watchers taught had made warfare more deadly. The magic they shared had turned humans away from trusting divine providence. The cosmetics and jewelry they introduced had fostered vanity and deception. The metallurgy they revealed had scarred the earth with mining and refining. Uriel, whose name means "fire of God," received perhaps the most difficult assignment, overseeing the cleansing that would wash away the old world and make room for the new. Over those who have been with the daughters of men will I bring a flood. This wasn't just about water rising. This was about divine fire, working through natural elements to separate the corrupt from the redeemable, to preserve what was worth saving, while washing away what was beyond hope. If you're seeing connections between this ancient account of cosmic intervention and modern discussions about divine judgment and mercy, show your engagement by hitting that like button. These aren't just old stories. They're frameworks for understanding how justice and mercy work together on scales beyond human imagination. The coordination required for this operation was staggering. 4 archangels working simultaneously across the earth, each with different assignments that had to mesh perfectly for the plan to succeed. Michael's forces had to locate and capture 200 fallen angels who had supernatural powers and 1,400 years of experience in evading divine authority. These weren't bumbling criminals. They were cosmic intelligence operatives who understood reality at levels beyond human comprehension. Gabriel had to convince Noah to build a boat big enough to house representatives of every animal species, in a time and place where such the giants had to be dealt with before the flood, but after Noah's Ark was ready. The Watchers had to be imprisoned before they could interfere with the rescue operation. The healing had to begin during the cleansing process to prevent the same problems from recurring. And all of this had to happen while maintaining the natural order as much as possible. The angels couldn't just snap their fingers and fix everything with obvious miracles. The solution had to work within the framework of natural law, using natural processes enhanced by supernatural coordination. The giants presented a particular challenge. These beings inherited supernatural strength from their angelic fathers, but lacked the wisdom to use it responsibly. They were too dangerous to leave free, but too powerful to capture easily. The solution was both elegant and terrible. They would be allowed to destroy each other through their own violence, while the flood would prevent any from surviving. The most remarkable aspect of this cosmic intervention was its surgical precision. In a world filled with corruption, the loyal angels had to identify and preserve the few humans who still maintained connection to divine order. Noah's family wasn't chosen randomly. They represented humanity's potential for goodness when properly aligned with cosmic justice. The operation was about to begin. After years of watching corruption spread, of witnessing innocent suffering, of seeing creation groan under the weight of unnatural violence, heaven was ready to act decisively. The cleanup wouldn't be gentle. When cancer has metastasized, surgery requires cutting away infected tissue. When corruption has spread throughout a system, restoration requires removing what can't be healed and starting fresh with what can be saved. Coming up in our final chapter, the great cleansing that would reset human civilization and give our species a second chance. The waters are rising, the ark is ready, and the old world is about to end. But from its ashes, a new beginning awaits. Chapter 10. The Great Cleansing begins. The sky hadn't seen a cloud in weeks. Noah's neighbors laughed as he loaded animals onto his massive boat, built miles from the nearest sea. "What flood?" they mocked. "Where's your water going to come from?" They had no idea they were witnessing judgment. God would provide a way of escape for those who trusted him. The animals came first. Not just local species, but creatures from every corner of the earth. Bears from the north, lions from Africa, kangaroos from distant lands no human had yet discovered. They arrived in an orderly procession, as if responding to a summons only they could hear. Picture this scene. Predators walking peacefully beside their prey. Natural enemies traveling together without conflict. Animals that should have been fighting each other for territory, instead cooperating in ways that defied everything humans understood about the natural world. The corruption of the Watchers had affected animal behavior, making creatures more aggressive and violent than their original design intended. But now, as divine intervention prepared to cleanse the earth, Creation itself was returning to its intended harmony. Noah's family watched in amazement as elephants lined up behind butterflies, as tigers walked calmly past rabbits, as eagles perched on the backs of deer. This wasn't natural behavior. It was supernatural preparation for supernatural preservation. Then came the day when the last animal had boarded, the last provision had been stored, and Noah stood at the entrance to his massive ark, looking out at a world that had no idea what was coming. The text tells us, "And the Lord shut him in." Think about that moment. The creator of the universe personally sealing the door that would separate the saved from the doomed. Divine hands ensuring that the barrier between judgment and mercy was secure. God himself guaranteeing that those who trusted in his provision would be protected from his justice. For 7 days, nothing happened. Noah's neighbors probably thought the crazy old man had finally lost his mind completely. Here he was, locked inside a boat with a zoo, waiting for rain that showed no signs of coming. But beneath the earth and above the heavens, forces were aligning that would reshape the face of the planet. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and what was happening. With their supernatural strength, they tried to fight the rising waters. They climbed mountains, built towers, used their inherited angelic knowledge to attempt engineering solutions. But you can't fight cosmic judgment with physical force. You can't engineer your way out of divine justice. One by one, these beings who had seemed invincible succumbed to the very waters their father's rebellion had summoned. The Nephilim, who had terrorized the earth for generations, discovered there was a force in creation more powerful than their strength, more implacable than their hunger. Their bodies died, but according to Enoch, their spirits remained. Bodiless entities seeking influence and embodiment, the demons that would plague humanity in ages to come. The physical threat was ending, but the spiritual corruption they represented would continue in different forms. As waters rose above the highest mountains, the imprisoned watchers in their cosmic jail had front-row seats to see the consequences of their rebellion. Every human life lost, every animal that drowned, every city that vanished beneath the waves, all of it could be traced back to their choice to abandon their posts and corrupt the natural order. For beings who had once claimed to love humanity, this was torture beyond description. They had started with desires to help and bless and elevate the human race. Now they were witnessing the near extinction of the species they claimed to love, knowing that their choices had made this cleansing necessary. But inside the ark, a different story was unfolding. While the world outside was experiencing judgment, the world inside was experiencing providence. Food appeared exactly when needed. Waste management systems functioned perfectly. Natural enemies lived in harmony. The very atmosphere inside the boat seemed to calm both human and animal anxieties. Noah's family was witnessing something unprecedented. Divine protection in the midst of divine judgment. They were experiencing mercy, while justice raged just outside their walls. They were seeing proof that even when God's patience reaches its limits, his love still provides a way of escape for those washed away, leaving a planet ready for a fresh start. But this wasn't just about ending the old world. It was about beginning a new one. When Noah finally opened the door of the ark and stepped onto dry ground, He wasn't just a survivor, he was a pioneer, the first human to walk on a cleansed earth, the first father of a redeemed human race. His first act was to build an altar and offer sacrifice, acknowledging that survival wasn't earned but gifted, that mercy wasn't deserved but freely given, that the opportunity for a new beginning came not from human effort but from divine grace. The rainbow that followed wasn't just a pretty sky decoration. It was a covenant sign, God's promise that judgment on this scale would never again be necessary. That future cleansing would come through different means, that humanity had been given a second chance, and divine patience would work differently in the ages to come. If this exploration of ancient accounts of divine judgment and mercy has opened your eyes to connections you'd never seen before, take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell. These stories aren't just historical curiosities, they're frameworks for understanding how justice and love work together on scales beyond human imagination. The Book of Enoch's account of the flood completes a cycle that began with angels abandoning their posts. Cosmic rebellion led to earthly corruption. Earthly corruption necessitated divine intervention. Divine intervention made possible a new beginning. But the story doesn't end with the flood. The imprisoned watchers are still serving their sentences, still witnessing the consequences of their choices. Their demonic offspring are still seeking to influence human behavior. The tension between good and evil, order and chaos, wisdom and foolishness continues in new forms. And somewhere in the cosmic prison beyond time and space, fallen angels who once walked in heavenly courts are learning lessons about the price of rebellion, the importance of boundaries, and the devastating consequences of choosing personal desire over cosmic responsibility. The Book of Enoch reminds us that we live in a universe where actions have consequences, where justice operates on scales we can barely imagine, and where mercy provides escape routes. Remind us that size and strength mean nothing without character. And the man who walked with God shows us that ordinary people can be chosen for extraordinary purposes. What will you do with these forbidden secrets? How will this hidden history change the way you see the world around you? The choice, as always, is yours. But now you know the rest of the story, the parts they didn't want you to hear, the chapters they tried to erase, the warnings they thought were too dangerous to share. The Book of Enoch has returned from the shadows, and its message echoes across the centuries. Pay attention to the boundaries, respect the natural order. Choose wisdom over knowledge, character over power, service over selfishness. Because in a universe where angels can fall and giants can rise, the choices we make echo through eternity. The watchers are still watching. The question is, what will they see in us?